Good evening. Our top story tonight: national shock in rising tensions in Minneapolis after a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent fatally shot a woman during a federal operation in the city. The victim has been identified as 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, a mother of three, poet, wife, and community member. The shooting, captured on video and rapidly shared across social media, has sparked protests, political firestorms, and questions about the use of deadly force by federal law enforcement. Renee Nicole Good was not an anonymous figure. According to family members and local reports, she was a 37-year-old U.S. citizen who recently moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota, with her wife and their young son. Born in Colorado, Good studied creative writing and was recognized as an award-winning poet. She described herself online as a poet and writer and wife and mom, passions that underlined a life focused on family and creativity. Friends and family remember her as kind, compassionate, and devoted to caring for others. Her mother told reporters that Good wasn't involved in any violent protests or confrontations and likely acted out of fear when confronted by federal agents. "That's so stupid," her mother said about her daughter's death, noting she was probably terrified at the moment it happened. Good leaves behind a wife and a 6-year-old child. Her former husband, who passed away in 2023, also fathered her child. Her death has now left her son without either parent, a fact that has deepened the emotional response from the community. The incident: what happened? Early on January 7th, federal ICE agents were conducting operations in South Minneapolis on a residential street near East 34th Street and Portland Avenue. Police say that video footage shows the agents approaching vehicles and attempting to secure the area. At some point, Good's car, a Honda SUV, was stopped in the roadway during the operation. According to local authorities and video reviewed by journalists, ICE agents reportedly surrounded Good's vehicle and were attempting to order her to step out. The SUV then reversed and began to drive forward as agents closed in. One ICE officer fired multiple shots at close range through the driver's side window, killing Good. The vehicle then crashed into parked cars. Footage shared online shows the moments immediately after the shots were fired, bystanders running toward the scene, and one woman screaming that the wounded driver was her wife and that they had a child in school. Official statements from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE characterized the shooting as an act of self-defense. They alleged the driver attempted to ram or run over an agent, forcing the officer to fire in defense of himself and others. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and President Donald Trump echoed that narrative on social media, labeling the incident part of a broader struggle against violent obstruction of federal agents. But local leaders in Minneapolis strongly dispute that account. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey said the video shows a federal agent recklessly using power, resulting in a woman's death, and called on ICE to leave the city. Minnesota Governor Walz activated the State Emergency Operations Center and criticized the federal presence, saying city officials had warned that an incident like this could happen. City council members described Good as a resident who was simply watching out for her immigrant neighbors and was not targeted in any enforcement action. Thousands gathered in Minneapolis for a vigil and protest, honoring Good's life and demanding accountability. Signs reading "ICE out of MPLS" appeared across the crowd, with many attendees calling for sweeping changes to federal immigration enforcement. Video released by witnesses and journalists complicates the federal narrative. Multiple angles suggest the agent fired as the vehicle was moving away, and there's no clear evidence that he was run over or in immediate physical danger at the moment the first shots were fired. Critics note that what unfolds on camera does not align with claims that Good was trying to murder officers or weaponize her vehicle. Supporters of Good insist she tried to remove her car from the scene out of fear, not aggression, a claim supported by eyewitness accounts and her family's statements. Tensions have also risen over how medical care was handled after the shooting. Some bystanders said a person offering aid was blocked by ICE agents, a detail that is now part of community outrage. My analysis: tonight's tragic death of Renee Nicole Good is not just a local story, it's a flashpoint in a much broader debate about federal law enforcement, civil liberties, and the use of force in the United States. The conflicting narratives from the federal government and local leaders reflect deep national divisions over immigration policy, policing authority, and public safety. First, the fact that Good was a U.S. citizen with no serious criminal history and was not a target of any enforcement action raises immediate questions about the necessity of deadly force in this encounter. Federal law allows officers to use lethal force when there's an imminent threat, but based on available video, local statements, and witness reports, it remains unclear whether such a threat existed at the moment the officer fired. Second, the broader context matters. Minneapolis has been under strain from federal immigration operations that local officials have publicly opposed. That backdrop creates mistrust, making every law enforcement action a subject of intense scrutiny. When federal agencies enter communities that have explicitly asked them to stay away, the potential for misunderstanding and escalation increases. Finally, we should remember that in any society governed by the rule of law, transparency and accountability are critical solutions, not silence and defensiveness. The public deserves a full, independent investigation. Video evidence must be examined by impartial parties, and lessons must be drawn so that a tragedy like this does not repeat. Lives were lost, families were devastated, and cities remain divided. We will continue to follow this story closely as more details emerge and investigations continue. Coming up next, how communities across the country are reacting to the Minneapolis shooting and the implications for federal-local relations on immigration enforcement. Thank you for watching.